My name is Kelly, and I am an elementary EL teacher who is currently pursuing ESL endorsement from Georgetown College. This video is part of my class project for EDU 583, Linguistic Theory and Analysis, and the purpose is to discuss the linguistic assets of a high school EL student and recommendations for supporting her, as well as other EL students. So today I am speaking with Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I am the high school EL teacher for Mara, the student that we're going to be discussing today. I work with her in her English 2 class, which is the sophomore English, with a couple of other students, particularly when they have to do big writing projects, as well as analyzing text, and then having to write about it as well.
Thank you. Well, for this project, you recommended a 10th grade student to me for linguistic analysis of her English language skills, and so we will call her Mara throughout this conversation. Current research suggests that teachers consider the linguistic assets that all students bring to the classroom, particularly our EL students, and whenever designing instruction. So that means what language connections can be made between English and a student's home language or native language. Can you describe some of the linguistic assets Mara has as a native Spanish speaker from Mexico?
I got Mara, I should have said I also do middle school. So I've known Mara since 7th grade. She came to me as a newcomer, and she came with a lot of assets. She has a strong educational background from Mexico. Her vocabulary is very strong, so we were able to pull over a lot of cognates from Spanish to English, as well as she had basic foundational knowledge for the content areas. So once we got the basic learning of English going, she was able to transfer a lot of the things that she knew from Spanish into English to help her understand her classes.
Yes, her formal schooling has definitely been a benefit for her coming into American schools. And cognates, I'll talk about in just a few minutes. That was one of the recommendations that I have for you.
Okay.
With her access scores, you're obviously very familiar with access, have done that for years, and you understand the significance of the annual ELP assessment, as well as WIDA's can-do philosophy and the can-do descriptors. And looking at Mara's 2022 access scores, she had an overall composite score of 2.7, and by domain, her listening score was 1.9, her speaking score 1.7, her reading score 3.0, and writing 3.4. So she scored at the entering level for listening and speaking, but performed significantly higher at the developing level in reading and writing. So how can the can-do philosophy and descriptors help Mara's teachers meet her different needs in each of those language domains?
With the can-do descriptors, it lets the teachers know where she is as far as what she can do, and I always suggest to teachers to look at that next level, to where can we push Mara to be. Her speaking and listening, she was a little hesitant when she first came in 7th grade to speak. She's a little bit on the shyer side, so she really relied on that reading and writing background that she came from Mexico with to dive into text. We're working on the speaking. She has a job now, so that's good. She's a server at a restaurant, so I'm hoping over the summer that's going to help her because she'll have to speak to the customers. And she's really coming out of her shell. But as far as back to the can-do descriptors, just letting teachers know, if she's at the phrases level, how can we turn those into sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, giving her opportunities to listen to different videos from class or classmates and paraphrasing, and just giving her those opportunities to interact with the language.
Excellent. One of the recommendations that I do have for her is to help her with her speaking and listening skills by building academic vocabulary and academic language in the content areas. And as you know from Access has a lot of content-based questions, which I don't think all teachers understand that students really need to have the vocabulary and an understanding of processes in content areas to talk about whenever they take that test. So for students like Mara to be successful and participate in academic discourse, they need scaffolds in place to make sure they are comprehending the content that they listen to and that they can communicate their own understandings. So some of the things that I considered for Mara are visuals, cues, and cognates, like you mentioned, especially whenever topics are linguistically heavy. A lot of times in math, you find very linguistically heavy questions where students need those visuals of what formulas are, or a reminder of what you call different parts of operations, and then helping them, create a scene from a word problem so that they understand what they're trying to really answer. Giving them cues, whether it's cue cards or things that are posted that they can refer to whenever they're trying to communicate through speaking or when they're trying to listen and understand information. And then cognates, of course, are great between English and Spanish because there are so many. Lots of cognates in science in particular from those Latin roots. Also, I did a little research on unit word walls and unit dictionaries that students can keep for their own personal use when they're learning new vocabulary and content words that they can start to use in their communication skills when speaking and listening. And then sentence frames and cloze activities that put those words in that language in context for them can help build speaking and listening skills. The other big thing I recommended on that is just repeated opportunities for our students to work with content words and phrases, to listen to messages repeatedly, to be able to ask clarifying questions when they're trying to make meaning for messages, and then having them practice oral explanations of things, practice those speaking skills.
Absolutely. Those are all great. Thank you. And I'm glad you brought up math because Mara did take geometry this year, and that was quite challenging because there are a lot of academic vocabulary math, specifically geometry.
Yes, it's almost like another language in itself.
It really is.
Another recommendation that I have for Mara, and this has to do with the tool that I'm leaving you with that you can use. I emailed you a link, if you saw it, for a focus bulletin from WIDA, and it's an older one. It's a 2016 focus bulletin, but it's called Writing with a Purpose. And so ELs like Mara who are developing their writing skills in English, there is a guiding questions framework in there to focus on improving one writing category at a time when giving these students feedback. And so it's really good, and even though it's older, it's still very relevant for today because it has students make sure that their purpose is clearly established, they work on idea development, they get their writing organized. Once that's all in place, then they work on cohesion and language richness, and the last thing they do is revise their grammar and vocabulary. It used to be that people were kind of nitpicky about that sort of thing, making kids fix their grammar and pronounce things correctly, and that doesn't work for our EL students. So I'm glad that that's at the end. But the whole focus bulletin, I sent you the link for, so you can look that over and see some of those guiding questions and maybe share with her teachers.
Oh, great. I appreciate that. Yes, it was quite challenging, the writing assignment that we finished the year with, because she did have to analyze 2 texts. And so that's very helpful to get all her ideas out before we worry about all the other little details. So.
Yes, and you're relying on her assets because she has knowledge about these things. It's just in another language. So helping her get her information out and then kind of figure out what's the English word for this, and what do I already know, and what have I learned from this passage I read, and just kind of put all the pieces together is a good way for her to construct meaning.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for speaking with me today, Sarah.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and I thank you for everything that you did with Mara. Those are great suggestions that I'll take into next year in 11th grade.
Yes, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.